What is up, esteemed guests? This one's gonna be a doozy. That's Monster Energy, by the way. I drink things out of the wrong vessel, almost habitually. I think it might be the autism. Moving on. This one's not gonna be fun. It's gonna be especially not fun for a few specific people. Hi, Catherine! I know you're still subscribed to me. You're not gonna like this one. Catherine, I'm sorry. But, can you really blame me for that? I mean, you're the one who decided to abandon your son who already had abandonment issues, and then remain subscribed to his YouTube channel. Not really my problem, is it, Catherine? So, anyway. I'm Sunny Fists from the Bren System, this is one more channel of the Bren System, blah 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 blah. Intro!
Oh, I'm sorry, but you said the N-word.
This isn't gonna be a fun video. I mean, a lot of our videos are just like artsy and fun, but the thing about YouTube is, even though as a Gen Z cusper, like a Gen Z millennial cusper of 24, we have kind of grown up online, YouTube has been one of the few platforms where we could kind of do what we want because we don't have such a big and high pressure following on here. But the thing is, it's the one platform left where we haven't given any context. I mean, I just realized on every other channel every other account that we have, there's been some context so that people have some idea of who we are. And I've been trying to figure out how to deal with that. I mean, what am I gonna do? Make some cringy YouTube apology where I pretend to cry? No. I'm not gonna self-flagellate on the internet for my own benefit. That's pathetic. But it's been bugging me because people who subscribed to us years ago have been kind of showing up and asking questions. And the thing is, the content we made back then was sometimes great, other times really not great, and for reasons that we haven't explained. Like, we've never really gone into detail about the stuff. And today, this video is going to be about context. Like I said, I don't want to do a cringy YouTuber apology, I just want to give context. I'm just going to be giving you the rundown on what the fuck is my life, all the fuckery, everything that's ever happened to impact our art on here. And you can be the judge. It's up to you. I can't tell you what decisions to make in your brain meat. That's up to your brain meat, bro. I mean, brain meat is kind of a disgusting phrase, but I can say what I want on here, within reason. So gamers, I'm gonna be real with you. We were born in the late 90s to a teenage mother and a man who was addicted to cocaine. It's not a great hand to be dealt, is it? I should mention that that man was quite a bit older. As in, too old to be knocking up a 17-year-old girl. Like, they were kind of crap. But it wasn't just the usual. It wasn't just the, oh great, dad's having a meltdown over the coke again and he's throwing furniture. Oh great, mum's having a mental breakdown again. No. It wasn't just that stuff. Because the family that I come from are not only religious, but they're religious in a way that is a little bit sus. Have you ever heard of a thing called Christian Science? It's basically like this branch of like esoteric cult Christianity, or pseudo-Christianity, because it's a cult category. It's a category of cult, where your kind of cultural religious sensibilities get in the way of your ability to engage responsibly with medicine and healthcare. It was one of them. To give you an idea, My family didn't refer to themselves as a family, they called themselves a clan. So, the Philippines is one of those countries that was horrifically ravaged during those World War II things that happened. Can't say the word because this is YouTube, but there were some really bad YouTube things that happened in World War II, and the Philippines was really badly affected, and people didn't really get the right support afterwards, so they kind of started going nuts and forming cults. So the way that I grew up was quite isolated and unusual. I had some really messed up beliefs that were imposed on me as a kid. One of them being that medicine might make you feel better, but it will make you sicker at the same time. And as someone who was born chronically ill, that wasn't easy. Other things were, like, quite bigoted, if I'm honest. My family were aggressively transphobic my entire upbringing. And, had some thoughts about sex and gender, and I don't know if you can tell, but I'm an intersex gender fluid. I'm an intersex gender fluid. Yeah. So things weren't good for me. My own grandmother called me a eunuch to my face, and she thought it was funny. My cokehead father had abandoned me, and now I had a stepdad who wasn't any better. He was also a crazy, aggressive man-child. Hey Phil, bet you're watching this one too. Hey, you admitted it yourself that you've been aggressive to me, so I don't feel bad. I was an alcoholic and a drug addict, which I kept a secret from everyone in my life. That's a crazy one. I started drinking when I was 10 years old. I started abusing pills when I was 13. So, yeah, at a very young age, I had a lot of damage in my brain, and I came from a very esoteric ideology that had been imposed on me since birth. So as you can imagine, some of the content I made expressed some pretty problematic thoughts, which I do regret. I regret ever being that person, and I think it's unfair that I was ever forced to be that person by people who were supposed to love me. What kind of loving parent imposes racist thoughts onto their child who is brown? And that's not to say everything was awful in my life. I had a lot of academic success at that age. I got into a private school with a scholarship and bursary, so I didn't have to pay full fees. But at the same time, that experience wasn't great, because having to constantly perform well academically in order to stay in the school I was going to only made my addictions worse. And I had a lot of other mental issues. I was struggling with self-harm and everything else. I even started developing psychosis, and I was having episodes during math class. There was also the fact that I was kind of a famous fan in the Metal Gear Solid community. That's why a lot of the early videos were about Metal Gear, because I was one of those well-known Tumblr users who made fanfiction and fan art about Metal Gear Solid and had a lot of big, deep thoughts about it, and people liked the content I put out. There have been times where people have in person said that they know about my Tumblr. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the dread of that experience? Anyway, at the very least I had a Tumblr following who were there for me. I had friends who were backing me up and looking after me and listening to me. But those friends were losing patience, because what are you supposed to do when you're just a teenager and your friend is an addict and is in a cult and has unhinged breakdowns all the time? When I was like 17, a lot of those childhood friends turned their backs on me because they just couldn't take it anymore because I was acting unhinged. So, you know, it was like terrible pretty much, but there were some upsides. I had a good time sometimes. I'm not gonna pretend I'm the most traumatized person in the world, but not many people have ever been tortured as a child. And that's kind of weird. But yeah, the whole reason why we first started posting on here was to show off our fandom content, and also any animations or artwork we made, because since a young age, we have been artists. Ew, artistes even. Then Nice Gator came into the picture, and to give you some context, you know how cults typically isolate their members? So every time I had a friend, my family would rigorously talk shit about them whenever they weren't there to try and convince me to not really get too close to anyone. Gator was one of the only people my parents liked. And if Catherine and Phil like you, that's not a good sign. Told you you weren't gonna like it, guys. This is what you get. I really did choose violence today, I'm coming for everyone. Anyway, Gator and I met when we were like 16, and I was profoundly vulnerable, obviously. I was an addict, I was severely mentally ill, and I was in a very, very abusive home with some really warped ideology. I did not know how to recognize abuse. And he recognized that. That's what he liked about me. People on TikTok already know about this. But like, our relationship lasted about 5 years, and the treatment I was subjected to only got worse as time went on. He was a cheater, which is crazy because we were already polyamorous. I've been polyamorous my whole life, but that wasn't enough for him. He needed to hook up with people that I explicitly told him not to. He was also secretly a serial predator, which he very carefully concealed by kind of shuffling stories around, and he would keep information from me to make sure I didn't know. Eventually I found out, and I found out the hard way, but yeah, that's the person I was in a relationship with, and the person who was my content collaborator. All of that podcast stuff, the Boyfriend's Brainstorm podcast, that's all been taken down because I can't bear to fucking see it anymore. But the thing about Gator is, despite being both black and Jewish, they're kind of a white supremacist. It's messed up. Like I said, I already grew up in a weird far-right environment that imposed weird beliefs on me, and then here's my fiancé at the time, who owned a MAGA hat despite being an ethnic minority who lived in the UK. To give you an idea of the kind of neurosis that was around me at all times. And like, I had a lot of self-hatred about my race. As you can imagine, it's not easy to be an Asian in the UK. And sure, I'm Asian. I'm half Welsh. My dad is a white Welshman. But unfortunately that does not show in how I look. I look very Asian. My younger brother is a little more white passing. How dare you? But, but like, you know, it's always been hard for me, and I hated everything about my race. I used to try and look paler, and like, obviously, that was gonna make me even worse with those right-wing views I was already being forced into. That's why I made a lot of content that was kind of gross. People show up in my comment sections all the time being like, oh, you're that one guy who made like those really famous like Moon Man songs. Like, you made those really racist songs. And I'm like, yeah. I was raised a musician. The home I grew up in was literally part of the building was a music studio, like, and I also had some really messed up beliefs, so of course that came into some of the music I made. And I regret that a lot, and you know what? I'm not gonna expect anyone to forgive me. There's gonna be some people who can't forgive me, because let's be real, even though I was a teenager, I was a major racial sellout. Which is shameful and embarrassing, but that's the truth. I was a racial sellout. I learned it from watching you, Catherine. I gotta stop. I'm being too mean. But, that's kind of why some of my content was a little, sussy. But even after I kind of started tapering off the sussy stuff, things were bleak. I, moved out at like 19, as soon as I could. Because I was sick and tired of being physically, verbally abused, and other types of abuse that I won't get into, because ew. But it was really hard for me. I had to work full-time jobs, which is really difficult for a chronically ill person. I was constantly moving from job to job because it was really hard to keep any one job longer than 6 months, because my health would keep crashing, and then my employers would be like, I'm sorry, you're just too unwell to work here, like you need to go. I was working like full-time in the insurance industry as an insurance broker, and then on the side I was also a freelance artist and writer at the age of like 19 and 20. That's absurd. Especially with a chronic illness that caused me to have constant fatigue and physical pain. I don't know how I dealt with that. And, like, obviously I didn't unpack any of what I'd been through, because I was still in contact with those family members who were crazy, and I was still in a relationship with Gazer. Then eventually, I was about, like, 20. Gator's dad was going on a year-long thing abroad. I won't get into it. He was leaving the country for a year, and we got the opportunity to live together. And that's when things got really bad. I was subjected to a year of domestic violence again. Which, when you've grown up in a violent household, is not good. That relationship was doomed. And at the time, he was also famous on TikTok. He made a TikTok account and it was taking off. Under the name Princess of Violence. You might have heard of that one. I don't know. And the TikTok persona that they'd created for themselves was very self-pitying, very much, oh, I'm this tragic anime-style anti-hero protagonist that no one understands. And so it was impossible for me to speak out about what was happening to me because he could leverage his platform. Use that misunderstood persona to hurt me. So I was trapped, and obviously the global panorama was going on, and I was trapped in the house with him. And how the hell was I supposed to make coherent art? I don't know. Eventually, this all cultivated in me losing yet another job, and quite dramatically, because the manager at that job was really nasty about my health issues. And I was so traumatized from the way I was abused at work that I couldn't bring myself to work another office job. I had to go all in on my freelance career, which was... I'm very grateful for the fact that as a freelance artist, I managed to build enough of a platform that I can now make enough money to live. I'm only 24, and I can already make enough money to live off of just making art. And that is something that I'm so grateful for, but at the same time, it's the only thing I have, because I can't work any other job, because I'm physically and mentally disabled. Like, what the hell else am I supposed to do? When I'm in pain so badly, I can't leave the house sometimes. Like, hello? Now, eventually I broke it off with Gator when I was about 21, because I'd had enough. I'd simply had enough, and also, being away from my parents long enough had kind of taught me to start caring about myself, and I'd started to kind of unpack my trauma a bit, but I was still around him. And figuring out what was wrong with my childhood helped me to understand what was wrong with him. I remember specifically telling him once that he acts just like my mother, which is not it's not good. It's not good. And the thing is, that year was up. His dad was gonna move back in. I turned to my university because on the side of being a professional artist, I'd also started studying at art school to improve my skills. I turned to my university. They had this program where they keep extra rooms in dorm buildings just in case someone is in my position. And although I was homeless, my uni was able to offer me a room to stay in. I had no permanent address, so I was still homeless, but I did have a bed to sleep in at night. And the environment wasn't good, because I was already an addict. I just had a horrible breakup. And I was surrounded by people who were constantly drinking, using drugs, and getting into fights. And so every single day was triggering for me. One of the crazy things was that in the flat above us, there was constant domestic violence, and I would wake up at like 3 in the morning to a very, very loud fist fight happening above me. And you can imagine how triggering that was for me, as someone who'd just gotten out of a domestically violent relationship. And the thing is, Gator and I were still in contact. We were still co-writers. He was still a part of Jahani Comics. He was still a part of my life. At one point, while I was homeless, my family disowned me. The way that happened was, I got in contact with them and decided to give them an ultimatum. I would become more present in their lives if they were willing to have a civil discussion with me and agree to all change our ways and try and live a more normal life. Their response was pretty much, fuck you, I want this twink obliterated, you know. And they were like, we never want to see you again. And I remember in that moment, I wanted to be upset, but I wasn't. Because I'd endured so much from them for so long, so I thought, you know what? That's a relief. And I was just like, alright, bye. I was disowned and I wasn't even upset about it, because that's how bad my family were. During this time, I was having a lot of flashbacks. A lot of memories that had been buried under DID barriers were coming up. I was remembering a lot of abuse that I had been subjected to that I had long forgotten. This was a really hard time for me. But eventually I managed to find this flat that I now live in. My own flat, studio flat, where I get my own privacy, and things were finally looking up. And then the big event happened. This is an event I've talked about on every other platform, but this was an event that, by the way, there's an ongoing police case regarding this event. That's how serious it is. So, big warning, this is about to get messed up. I know that I've already just talked about being in a cult, having psychosis, being domestically abused, and you're thinking, oh wow, that's really messed up. And now I'm like, here's what it gets really bad. And you're like, huh? Big content warning for SA, right? So this is about to get really bad. So, throughout our relationship, there had been a lot of kind of SA incidents that never got too serious, but were pretty bad. Won't get into detail, but even though he was concealing from me a lot of the really serious essays that he'd committed, he was also doing some mildly abusive stuff to me in that realm our entire relationship. And he was rebounding very badly since we'd broken up, and was not taking it well because he was obsessed with me to an unhealthy degree. And so what happened was, he went on a date with a girl. She refused to have sex with him. And so that night, he formulated a plan. He got in touch with me. I explained to him how I was having a pain flare-up, I was really having a hard time that day. And he was like, why don't you come over and I'll invite one of our mutual friends over too and we'll have a drink. And he was very clear, we're just gonna have a drink, it's nothing else, nothing really. And that night, after I was drunk, and also quite affected by the medication I was on for my pain, and also very mentally unstable, Gator committed a very serious sexual assault against me. This is currently being investigated by the law, and that night I finally cut ties with him for good, obviously. And then the past 2 years since then, we've been healing. We've finally gotten rid of all the dangerous and horrible people in our life, and we finally have a circle that is healthy. We've also finally been learning what politics are. We went from being completely subjugated by a far-right cult to being an honest-to-God libertarian socialist. And that's quite a big change. But that's what self-discovery is. That's what self-discovery is. And the thing is, even though we lost a lot along the way, we're now who we are. We're medicated, we're on mood stabilizers, so we don't have psychotic episodes anymore. Although we're also struggling with the effects of brain damage because of literally being in active addiction for 12 years. We were addicted to benzodiazepine. It was dark. But we've been clean for almost a year. We're actively healing, and our content has changed a lot because of that. But you might be thinking this is a bit biased. All I've really talked about is the bleak shit. The only real positive thing I've talked about is the fact that we managed to become professional in our dream career. But if I'm completely honest, up until now, we pretty much lost almost a quarter of our life. I shouldn't say a fifth of our life, maybe. I don't know, like a quarter of our life to fuckery. It's quite hard to admit, actually. It's embarrassing. I don't like the fact that I was 22 when I started figuring out how the world works. Being ex-cult is a really, isolating experience. But I need everybody to understand that cults are not as rare as you think they are. They are everywhere. And the way that a lot of people discuss cults online is so sensationalist and gross, and I just want to give you an idea of what a real cult survivor looks like. Pretty much every day I'm learning things that are supposed to be common sense for most people, but that I never learned as a kid because I was so isolated from reality. It's hard for all of us, I should say. We're a system after all. Thing is, the reason why I'm telling you all this is because I want you to understand why our content has undergone such a massive change. Those old videos are gone, and it's because those old videos were the result of serious ritual abuse. And we didn't just delete them to kind of cover up our old offensive content, it was mainly for us, because we did not want to see triggering stuff that was gonna set off certain thoughts in our brain. Stuff that was made because of a cult, stuff that was made with an abuser, all of that. And like I said, it's up to you how you feel about all this. You can forgive me if you like, that would be nice. I'd really quite like to be forgiven, because one of the few things I'm scared of in life is not being understood. That's a very vulnerable moment for me to say that, but it's true. Being ex-cult kind of means that you're terrified of being misunderstood, that's kind of a part of it. But, I just kind of want people on YouTube to understand And like I said, I don't have a massive platform on here compared to other sites. I'm a bigger deal on other websites, but I do care about this platform, and I do care about the audience I have. And, I want you to know that I am who I am. If you do forgive me, great. If you don't, I understand. I really do. Because my situation is something that most people cannot understand. Like, how most people can't imagine being in my position. So to be able to sympathize and show compassion for me is difficult. I understand. You don't have to. As someone with a personality disorder, I don't have a natural empathy response. So I understand. I did just want to make my context known. And if you're here because you followed me back in those Moon Man days, or you like those offensive memes I made, I want you to reflect on the fact that those memes were made by an alcoholic, drug-addicted teenager who was a member of an honest-to-God cult. It is hard to admit when you have been sucked into an abusive group. It really is. It's hard for me to admit this. I'm only admitting this because, like I said, I woke up and chose violence, and I decided, fuck Catherine and fuck Phil, I'm gonna throw out the allegations, why not? And more than anything, I want people to understand what that kind of experience does to the human brain. The person that you are, when you are undergoing constant, unbearable trauma, when you are desensitized to violence against your body, that is the kind of person that you really don't want to be, but it's the type of person we're all capable of being. And you should look after yourself. Because ultimately my story is a cautionary one. So, you've heard my context, you've heard my regrets, you've heard about the fuckery. What now? I mean, it's not really hard to tell that in our comics the characters of Forius and Jason are supposed to represent me and Gator. That's why their relationship is so weird. I did that on purpose. I was trying to express how it felt to be in a relationship that was messed up. And when I eventually do publish the second part of their story, I will get a lot deeper into it. Trust me. But like, now you kind of understand where all that art comes from. So at the end of the day, a person is only defined by where they've been. Like, what kind of stimuli they've been exposed to. Not to get existential on you, but I'm a bit of an absurdist. Sorry. I'm kind of in a Sisyphean loop, guys. Just saying. But like, fact of the matter is, my art is obviously a product of myself. And I do believe that art is kind of like this very powerful and great thing that it comes through us. I see myself as kind of a vehicle for art. I gave my life to art years ago, and I'm never going back. It's one of the best decisions I ever made. But the thing is, fact of the matter is, my art is kind of weird. And it's weird because I'm weird. I'm weird. Have you ever seen me without this hat on? But like, jokes aside, I'm genuinely kind of a freak, guys. I'm kind of a freak, guys. Guys? I was literally born a hermaphrodite, guys. That's our word, by the way. If you're not intersex, you can't say that word, just saying. Just so you know. Please be nice to intersex people. We have it bad enough. Things are great now. We're full-time in our dream job. We have a home. We have a relationship with someone who's much nicer. A totally awesome girlfriend. Who we like very much. Who's been lovely to us. We've got a good circle of friends, a social life, well, everything except financial security, because at the moment we're being assessed for our ability to work by the Department for Work and Pensions because of our chronic illness and how it's gotten worse. For those who don't know, when you're chronically ill, typically it always hits the fan when you're in your 20s, because your body has kind of stopped developing at that point. On one hand, that's great, because after puberty was fully done with me, my hormones kind of started reaching their normal level, and I really, like, had to learn how to love my intersex body, which I have done. I love the fact that I have both big dick energy and fucking fat pussy energy at the same time, and kind of both and neither. That's great. It's great. I like that whether I wear feminine or masculine clothing, or feminine or masculine clothing, I always look kind of different in them. I used to hate that, but I love that now. I love that! I'm genetically disposed to serve cunt, guys! Fuck! But also, it means that my chronic pain, chronic fatigue, my circulation issues, etc. are escalating, and it's reaching a point where life is also harder as well as better. If you're someone who's suffered complex trauma, I want you to know you're not alone. I'm here, guys, and I'm an example of the fact of how, like, things can work out. Literally, no matter what. At the end of the day, you're still here. You are still you. The fact that I've been through all I've been through and I'm still me, I mean, sure, there's about 40 of me, but I'm still me. I've had to become multiple different people in order to survive, but I still survived. You know what I mean? And I just want people to know the context is everything. That it's okay if it took you a while to find who you are. It's okay if you've had some seriously regrettable opinions before, because there could be any number of reasons for that. It's okay if you've been through some stuff that most people can't understand, because you're still here and you're still living. And I'm living proof of that. I'm 24 and I have finally got a normal life. I'm not gonna lie, it's taken a while to adjust to it, because I'm so used to not having a normal life, to having a deeply abnormal life, in fact, that this feels kind of weird to me. But I want to kind of express that. I want to express how weird it is. Now, I know that I said this one wasn't gonna be fun, and that there haven't been that many jokes through this video. It's mainly just been me expositing context. But let's get the humor in there. Let's get back to my meat and potatoes, lads. Let's roast me. If you're born half Filipino, you either become a Nick is not green or you become a Sneeko. What generational trauma from a world war does to a motherfucker. Here's another one. Guys, can you spot the recovering drug addict? It's like so stereotypical of me to like love caffeine and nicotine as someone who used to pop pills. Here's another one. 2 parts apple flavor Crystal Light, 1 part methadone. They're gonna name this one after me when I die. If you know that infamous Tumblr post, then you're one of the OGs. My mother is gonna watch this video, and her body is gonna take a screenshot. The early content on my YouTube channel was quite literally like a Joker moment. Like, this whole video is literally just me going, guys, I had a heated gamer moment. It's kind of... I'm a bit cringe if I'm honest. Who will win? an extremist ideology formed by generational trauma, or one kid with a really deep autistic individuality complex. I'm also just realizing how stereotypically Filipino it is for me to take all the really messed up things that happen to me and make jokes about them. We're like infamously morbid people. Ano ba yan? What the fuck is this? I'm glad I'm doing it, you know? Fuck it. Like, let's take all the pain I went through and make a big meme out of it. Let's go, boys. The irony is also not lost on me on how most people of my generation, having unrestricted internet access ruined their lives, whilst for me it quite literally saved me. Like, if I didn't have, like, the internet to kind of prop me up growing up, if I didn't have the support of an internet following and internet friends, I probably would have never been exposed to new, perspectives, and found myself. The most well-adjusted Zoomer on Earth. How am I the most well-adjusted Zoomer when I have an entire list of syndromes? My medical record reads like a Twitter bio. Very, very poggers, and very wavy and cool. But I'm just doing it, because, like... Bro, even if I don't understand anything, that's fine. That's fine. I'm just a little guy with a tiny little brain that's riddled with holes, and that's fine. I'm just oversharing and fucking trauma dumping on the internet. That's fine! I'm just a little guy, okay? If you have a problem with this video, I just want you to consider the following. If you're watching this video and you're one of the many people who's not gonna like it, let me just present to you my case, okay? Saul Goodman here. 1, I'm just a little guy. 2, no, I'm just between shots, like, I don't know, think about how I want to end this video, and you know what? Since this video is about me changing and growing, I'm gonna just, like, run down for you a few new things I'm working on. We've quite recently started an indie game studio called Globa Games. At the moment, we've only entered one game jam. We made a little visual novel, a surrealist visual novel. Our style of development is very surrealist, but we do have a little something cooking up. I can't really get into what we're making because I don't want to spoil anything, but here's a little picture of a ditherpunk rat. Yeah, that's the caliber of art that you're gonna be seeing. It's about to get real sexy up in here. In a rat kind of way. We're also working on our webcomic, The Life and Times of thru. Now, that comic has been on hiatus for a long time, but new updates will be coming out. Eventually, once we've accumulated enough of a backlog. I also mentioned earlier that there will be a sequel to Flirting with Death, where we talk about Furious and Jason's relationship a bit more, but that story, there's a lot to it, and at the moment, I'm writing the script for it, and guys, you are not gonna believe the kind of disaster lesbians that are coming. What was it? Oh yeah, more Let's Plays will be coming, but with a little twist. We've got a few buddies who might be joining us in those Let's Plays, because Josh loves to make them. The rest of us, some of us do, as well. And you know what? Recently had a little conversation with them, and they'd love to do some Let's Plays together, and that might happen. So stay tuned for that. You get more of our funny little guy moments, but with more funny little guys. We've got more collaborators, guys. It's popping off. But yeah, that's it. Things are looking up for us. Our art is our art is getting more and more interesting. But it's about to get a lot more interesting. And I'm just happy that we have an audience to follow us along on this ride. So hopefully you'll stick with us. If you're new to this channel and this is the first one you're seeing, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry that Like, this is not the best introduction. But you know, if this didn't piss you off enough for you to click off the video, then like, welcome. Welcome to Wumble, channel of the Brown System. What's up? Other socials are linked down below. I'd also like to point out there is a cost of living crisis in this country. I am disabled and self-employed, and things are not great. So if you want to make donations through like Coffee or Patreon or whatever, you can do that. If you do subscribe on Patreon, at the moment the only rewards is that you get a little bit of extra content regarding our comics universe. Like, if you're interested in our comics, Patreon's a great place for that. We have lots of lore and extra stuff there. But you can also just donate because you want to. That's fine. All of our links are down there. Just, like, do your thing. Press some buttons, guys. I love pressing buttons, guys.